I've never really told the story of how I got into fiber arts. See, my mom's side of the family, they definitely did a whole lot of fiber arts. My grandma quilted. My mom does fabric art quilts and things. Her sister knits and works with yarn. And of course, you know me. I work with yarn and I make my yarn. And I add a whole bunch of sparkle and brightly colored rainbows. So when did I start knitting? I attempted to learn back when I was in high school, and this was back around 2003, 2004, and it just didn't pan out because what I later realized is that I was on the internet at that time trying to figure out how to knit and do all the nitty yarn things. All I had was pictures because YouTube didn't exist until around 2005, 2006, somewhere in there. So I was trying to learn in the age before YouTube existed and all these awesome video tutorials. So there you go. Now, cut to when I'm in college, and I'd say it's maybe around 2008. I know that if I go and log into Ravelry, it'll tell me when I started because I found Ravelry not that far after. My first knitting project where I decided that I am going to learn to knit. Oh, I made a scarf out of novelty yarn. And my first scarf was later became a mini skinny scarf. The first time I tried to knit, it was a trapezoid because I was increasing stitches without knowing what the heck I was doing. So I had to first learn how to cast on and then figure out how to knit and then figure out how to purl. One of the next projects after that, not far after that, was I tried to do Fair Isle and or Intarsia flat. So you can imagine how that went. I even designed my own cool design. It was a caution sign with an LED. Oh yeah, I was the techie geeky type. And it was cherry red and very purple. So purple that I later learned that some cameras at that time don't pick up on purple properly. They render it as blue. So I learned that because it was annoying me. And I learned that stockinette curls, all that good knitter yarny stuff that you learn. So anyway, and then another project I had was hand warmers, where I picked up the concept of double pointed needles. And guess what I did? I was knitting on the inside. You know how you work in the round and all your needles and you're working with your needles in front? My needles that I was working with to the rear, where I was knitting, the knit was on the inside. My purl was on the outside. Now, this worked out fine because the way these wrist warmers worked, I was able to flip them inside out, and I had perfectly functional cotton wrist warmers in a color that, well, I just don't jive with that, but that's okay. It's a learning experience, and we all got to go through that. Now, everything gets really vague and hazy because my memory is quite trash from, well, when I was younger, and because I am also likely autistic. Not that that really has anything to do with anything, but my memory is kind of hazy when it comes to timelines. What I imagine happened at the time was that I came across a group or thread on Ravelry. And these were some amazing spinners who, I recall, they were showing off their finely spun yarns with small coins in them next to the yarns in the picture. These were cool, and I'm like, I must have been like, what is going on here? And somehow I dived down the rabbit hole that was spinning. I made my own drop spindle with an eye hook, a craft wheel, and a dowel rod, and it worked. I still have yarn that I made from that spindle somewhere. I will have to search that out. I might drop a photo in here if I remember and take a picture of it. It was cool. It's all lumpy, bumpy, and chunky because drafting, what is that? I eventually later learned and picked up a drop spindle from Etsy. It was one of my first Etsy purchases ever. And where my town was at the time, we had a place called the Weaving Department. Now, the Weaving Department is no longer, and some of you might recognize it if you're from the St. Louis region. The Weaving Department had a whole bunch of yarns, and then one time I went up there and I saw a lady spinning. I watched her spin. I spoke with her. She was gracious enough to gift me a fair decent amount of like bear wool, which I later figured out the drafting part, and that's when it clicked. And then I took that wool and I understood that you need protein fibers in order to dye yarn, unlike my attempt with Kool-Aid and acrylic one time. I tried. But that lady, I saw her do it, the spinning with her spindle. Something clicked. And from then on, I just practiced, gave the drop spindle its name, definitely. I dropped it all the time, but I eventually got better, and my true spinning journey really took off around in 2015. I was pretty well comfortable. Me and the now hubs, then fiance at the time, I had a good job for the times then and a lot of free time. So I picked up, purchased fiber, and honed my craft. At the time, I thought the rainbow Rolex, that one video from easily 8 years ago now, I thought that was my best ever thing that I had made since then. Well, I've done a lot of cool things since then, and it was great. But I honed my craft over years, got better, got my spinning wheel, and that lasted me good 7 years until the uh, axle part of it broke. And now I'm working with my e-spinner, and I have learned more about my neurodivergent self. I have realized that I've been autistic this entire time. Whether I go for an official diagnosis at any point or just realize it within myself, it doesn't matter because I am happy. I understand myself better, and everybody is better for it that I understand myself. But anyway, that's a tangent. That is a short glimpse into my journey into the fiber arts from the beginning until now. Thank y'all for sticking with me on this journey. It's a bit rambly, but I hope it was a good one for you. Now, go make stuff sparkle. Enjoy yourselves. Take care, and I'll see you all in the next one.